Hello and welcome again to another episode of Fikava Vet Chat. My interviewee tonight is a colleague here from the UK, which is very, very hard to describe with just a few words because he has done just so much, not only for the veterinary profession, but also for a lot of different aspects of animal welfare. He is a multi-award winning veterinary surgeon. He has been Vet of the Year in the UK in 2014, 15 and 16. And he is also the recipient of the Prime Minister's Points of Light Award in 2020. Something we want to talk about a little bit later. So hello and welcome to Marc Abraham. Hello, Marc.
Guten Abend, Wolfgang.
Yes. Come on, keep going. Noch ein bisschen mehr Deutsch.
Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. Meine Großmutter was Deutsch, so ich spreche ein bisschen.
That is very impressive, actually, because
Wie geht's dir, Wolfgang? Wie geht's?
Mir geht es sehr gut. Vielen Dank.
that threw you, didn't
it? A little bit worn after a whole day with operations and consulting, but always happy talking.
Being a Tierarzt in the north of England, is that right?
Well, at the moment, in fact, yes, I am. So I had my clinic for over 20 years in the south of England, but I've never been up here in the north in Yorkshire, actually not very far away from the practice of James Herriot. And I think sort of as we can't travel or not supposed to travel abroad at the moment, sort of I thought it's a good opportunity to do a workation. So I'm working in different parts of the UK with different UK teams. And then at the same time on the weekends, sort of I enjoy the great outdoors the UK can offer. And I can only say everybody who is seeing this YouTube program, or for example, is listening to the podcast, once we can travel again, don't be put off by Brexit. Come to the UK. You can make great holidays here, and there are great the areas of great natural beauty, despite the fact that this is also quite a densely populated country. And people over here know how to have a good time. So SBS AVA Congress, for example, shows every year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm based down in Brighton on the south coast, and just like Yorkshire, we also have some fantastic scenery around and some great dog walks, and it's a beautiful part of the world. So come to England. There, we've done our bit for the English Tourist Board.
Yeah. So for all our viewers or listeners who are not from the UK, just to explain, Marc is a real household name within the veterinary profession, but also with pretty much all pet owners in the UK, because Marc is a champion for a lot of different welfare initiatives, and that is what I think we want to talk a little bit about tonight, and then possibly also about some of the awards. I mean, it's the sheer list of awards, sort of, it's just, I mean, absolutely incredible. And let's see how we get on. Normally, we aim to have about 20 minutes for our Fikava Vet Chats. This one might take a little bit longer. So, Marc, before we start sort of with veterinary medicine, sort of how did it come to you? Was it always the thing you wanted to do, veterinary medicine? Was there no alternative? Or just tell us a little bit about sort of Marc before vet school.
So baby Marc was obsessed with animals. I was very fortunate to have parents that also loved animals and got me out and about and interested in nature. I had pets growing up. And then I think when I was 3 years old, so my mum tells me my pet tortoise had a wound on its leg, and in the wound was a maggot, a blue bottle larvae, and I managed to get the maggot out with a twig. This is when I was 3, and the leg healed up, and the tortoise did very well. and it made a recovery. And I got this sort of feeling of making animals better. And I remember it very vaguely, but my mum, stresses that it definitely happened. And so I got the feeling of making animals better. My uncle was a vet, so I knew about the veterinary profession, but the two sides of the family weren't that much in communication. So I knew about being a vet. I loved making animals better. I was obsessed with nature and being outside and playing, and eggshells and bird feathers and all that sort of thing, butterflies. And it was the only thing I ever wanted to do. So it was literally from a very early age, all I ever wanted to do was to help animals. So learning and studying and doing all the sciences, and obsessed with getting into vet school. It's all I ever wanted to do. So I was a very geeky, nerdy, studious child and teenager. And then I got into vet school, which was the dream. And then I kind of had my teenage years in my late 20s, because I moved to France, and I was working in bars in a ski resort and teaching snowboarding and DJing. So I did my crazy stuff sort of the wrong way around.
Okay. So you had your degree, veterinary degree, already in your pocket.
Yeah,
when you then said, okay.
I had my vet degree. I went on holiday to, I think it was Avoriaz or somewhere in Switzerland, and I remember the snow being really bad and thinking, how can I be assured of going on holiday and having good conditions? And I thought I'd just moved to France. So I had my vet degree. I'd been in mixed practice for about 18 months in the UK. And then I moved to Val d'Isère, and my first job in Val d'Isère was cleaning toilets in a bar, hanging up coats, and learning how to be a barman and a DJ and a snowboard instructor, and just generally behaving as I probably would have if I was normal back in my teens. So I used to do the winter in France in ski resort, and then come back and locum the rest of the year in the UK, and I did that 3 times, and it was a great way to live in your late 20s.
Well, it's the thing is, I love this, and this is, I mean, so well. It was so alien for my peers. You see, I qualified in Germany, and then I did something sort of similar. When I finished at vet school, I thought, well, you had Latin at school, and Latin is really good for pretty much nothing, because they teach you terminology which is ancient Greek and Latin, sort of, and even the students that didn't have Latin at school sort of coped quite well with it, and were sometimes possibly better than us. But it is a good base to learn another foreign language. So then I thought, well, you can work all your life. So what you do is, I went to Central America. I went to Guatemala, and I studied Spanish. So I learned Spanish.
Fantastic.
Sort of moved in with a Guatemaltecan family. Sort of had 6 hours a day, one-to-one tuition in Spanish, which was absolutely important if you want to survive in Guatemala. You can't, and if you live on a low budget, you need to speak Spanish. And so did also something completely different. Had a little bit of a bad conscience, because I thought, you're losing everything also. But no. It's, unless you are, I don't know, 5 or 10 years out or something like that, so then that might be possibly a different thing. But if you take a break for half a year or for a year or something like that, stay a little bit sort of in touch, read, possibly visit some local colleagues or something like that, but do something different, especially when you are in your 20s. Don't worry. There are so many years that will come in your profession where you will work endless hours, and it broadens your horizon. And
really does.
So many colleagues who then pursued right away after university. You have to get your first job, and then you have to get your second job, then you have to get a partnership, and then once you're in the partnership, you are then sort of in this treadmill. And I am really grateful for all the months I spent abroad, sort of before I actually started with clinical work. And okay, looks a bit strange on your CV, but I mean, come on, we all have only one life, and you have to
for sure. And the other thing I found really helpful especially when I was working behind the bar, and I was working sort of après-ski and dealing with rich people and poor people and French people and English people and Scandinavians and seasonaires and people on holiday, obviously, for the week. Your communication skills are developed so quickly because they have to. Your sense of anticipation of people's needs, which can be something as simple as seeing the couple that came in last night and having a beer and a gin and tonic waiting on the bar when they reach you. And I found that as a locum vet, when people are seeing someone completely different, as well as being an emergency vet for 10 years, which was what I was when I came back, and again, people are seeing a totally different vet to their normal vet, the ability to reach common ground in your communication skills and earn trust and loyalty from complete strangers were skills that could easily be transferred from sort of working behind in a bar environment. So that really helped. As you say, it's something completely different, but it really does enhance your communication skills. And I think when you're in the veterinary profession, especially sometimes in the emergency veterinary profession, where things are a little bit tenser, you know, there's not trust issues, but people are seeing someone completely different, and you've got to cross that bridge quicker than maybe before in terms of trust and communication. I just found it really helpful. And funny enough, doing the media, because I did, obviously we'll talk about it, but I do a lot of media stuff as well. And the feeling of educating people on a big scale on some of the big TV shows also is about communication, breaking it down, making it digestible, simplifying stuff, being non-patronizing. And I think communication is something that I'm really, really passionate about. And it's something that our profession often gets criticized for, you know, not explaining things properly, maybe charging too much, maybe keeping people waiting. And they're all things that can be quite easily tackled just by improving communication skills, not just for vets, but for practices in general, as you well know, because I've worked at your practice once, and the communication of your practice was phenomenal. Was phenomenal, and I loved working there because the communication was so good, and it just made the whole environment much more positive and proactive and just respectful of both staff and clients, and of course the animals.
Well, it is. I mean, the area my clinic was in, sort of, there were a lot of sort of demanding clients, but then also people you could really sort of involve in nicely. Sort of, they were, what shall I say, very keen to get involved in the decision-making process. And it was, I mean, there's some of my clients, I mean, you have human medical professionals, for example. So, I mean, yes, you draw on their expertise as well. I mean, there are certain things, you say, no, sorry, it works differently in veterinary medicine, but sometimes you can learn just so much from other people. I mean, our mutual friend, Beverly Cuddy, for example. I mean, Beverly was one of my clients, and Beverly is the editor of the largest dog magazine in the UK. And whenever I had Beverly in my consulting group, sort of the nurses were already sort of, instead of 15 minutes, it's half an hour consult. So, but I tell you, it was really both ways. So informed, so well connected. I mean, sort of, I had so interesting conversations with her. I mean, obviously, her dogs had complex medical needs. So that needed some time, but it's also somebody with her wealth of knowledge and background. It was, I mean, I cherished each and every consultation with her. It was fantastic. And I had quite a few clients like that, which was possibly the reason why I wasn't the fastest consulting, but I had a lot of fun also and enjoyment out of sort of my job. And I mean, come on, when you did the locum for my practice, I know that all the nurses were upset when I came back from holidays because, and now he's back again. Oh, we want Marc back again. You really spoiled it for me.
So sorry, not. No, they were lovely and they were welcoming, and I
Yeah.
loved your the clients were lovely, and
Ah,
it was a really nice part of the world
and
where you
also a really
practice. Yeah.
nice team. Really, really
Hmm.
nice team. I was very, very, very lucky.
And I only just started campaigning then, because I remember I
Yeah.
used to photocopy quite a lot of stuff, and I was just beginning my dog shows back in. I mean, the Pup Aid had just started, and they were so supportive of what I was doing, which is rare when you go to practice, because oh, that's the locum, he's just doing his thing. But they were very interested, very engaged, and it was a nice feeling to have that support around, not just for the vetting side, but also the beginning of my campaigning journey.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that was the point I would like to explore a little bit further. I mean, we have now here somebody who has studied, who had a little bit of a good time after studying, then works as an emergency vet for 10 plus years. And then comes this point where he suddenly sort of go into just, what shall I say, sort of into campaigning, into a more become a more public figure. What made the change?
So I was,
What?
when I was doing emergency vet work, I got involved in the media, and I started working on some of the big shows, mainly the Paul O'Grady show, which was on Channel 4 live to about 6 million people on. And I did, every 2 weeks, I'd have a pet clinic on his show. And he was a stand-up comedian, quite famous, still is, does the show with Battersea,
He
Dogs
is
Home.
great.
Very nice guy, exceptionally. And I was also comedy obsessive. I loved stand-up. I did a stand-up course. So to work alongside someone like that, and we had such a great energy and connection, and I'd set him up with loads of jokes, and he'd set me up with one, and I get the audience laugh as a professional, a guest on the show, which was quite rare. But I'd have a pet clinic, and I'd go around with owners and the celebrities and Paul, the host, and talk about various pet things and problems, and mainly preventative medicine, vaccination, and checking under your rabbit's bum, twice a day in the summer. Just simple things, but packaged in a way that people could understand, and hopefully they'd share the information too. Terrifying to do live TV with no media training. Every single time, terrifying. But it was more important to educate and do what was right for the animals than whatever I was feeling. And once you get into it, it was really enjoyable. The reason I say that is because the TV stuff and having a media profile really helped with the campaigning, which was to come. So then one night in my emergency clinic in 2009, I saw the moment, if you like, which changed everything. Was I was on a night shift, and I saw 8 puppies coming into my practice, all with parvo, but they were all coming with a different owner from a subscribing vet practice to our emergency clinic. And it's, as you know, as anyone watching who's a vet, 8 cases of parvo in one night is very, very rare. Anyway, 6 made it, 2 passed away, sadly. And they all look quite similar, these puppies, and obviously the work that goes into trying to save a parvo puppy, and the money that's spent, and the emotional toll on the owners especially. And I just thought, this isn't right. And so when the dust had settled, I contacted them all, found out where these puppies had come from, and unsurprisingly, they had come from a third-party puppy dealer, which was licensed just outside where I live in Brighton. And they were buying in puppies from licensed puppy farms in Wales. So the whole thing was completely legal, but it wasn't ethical. And so I went undercover, and I was pretending to buy a puppy for my girlfriend. I think at the time I was can I look at this one, and can I look at that one? And I was holding them and asking them questions. And I was so impressed really about how good they were at their sales patter. Anyway, I didn't buy one. And it just didn't sit right with me that this was allowed to happen. Obviously, the third-party barn, it was full of straw, proper reservoir of parvo. And so I decided to do something about it, rather than just saying, oh, I'll forget about it, or someone else is going to deal with it. So because I had a media profile, the only thing I knew what to do, because I'd been invited to so many charity dog shows at that point as a TV vet, judging dog shows, like fun dog shows, Waggiest Tail, Child's Best Friend. And I thought, how about if I organize a dog show where the celebrities are the judges, and we raise awareness about puppy farming, third-party selling, the benefits of rescue, how to buy responsibly. And so that was the idea. And the first one was in 2009, which was called the World's Biggest Puppy Party. And we got various celebrities involved, just like Z-List and a few local politicians. And then I moved it to a better venue, and I called it Pup Aid. And I called it Pup Aid after Live Aid, because Live Aid was obviously music, raising awareness about Africa. And I was also using music to have a dog show that raised awareness about puppy farming. And this started in Brighton, 2 years in Brighton. Then we moved it to Primrose Hill in London. It's like one of the most exclusive open spaces in London. It's a royal park, very, very famous. And the celebrities got bigger, and I mean, Ricky Gervais and Brian May, and we'd have reality TV stars and pop stars, and they'd all come.
Wasn't Zoe Ball also involved?
Zoe wasn't involved in the Pup Aid. She helped me helped me open a branch practice a few years later down in Brighton. She came along. She's been a friend for years. So anyway, we had this celebrity judge dog show with music and food. It was like a one-day festival. And we had the paparazzi there all day taking pictures, and a VIP enclosure. And then at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd have the parade of ex-rescued breeding dogs. And everything went quiet. So we had, there was in Primrose Hill, if anyone is aware, it's like the most, let's say, affluent part of London. So there was lots of French bulldogs, obviously, and lots of chihuahuas, and lots of amazing cockapoos, and just with incredible collars and clothes on. And all of a sudden, we have this parade of very, very, in the true sense of the word, pathetic, sort of sorry, ex-rescued breeding dogs. So mammary glands along the floor, looking very scared. Some of them had to be carried, cesarean scars, broken teeth, just terrible specimens of large-scale commercial dog breeding, and everyone started crying. It was incredible. Every single year, we did it for 10 years. Every time they'd start crying, you could hear people sobbing. It was quiet. I'd do this sort of speech, rallying call. This is what we're here for. This is the evidence. So it was a great way of raising awareness. It got bigger and bigger on social media and at the dog show, and then I knew we were making an impact, but it just wasn't enough. It was one weekend a year in September in London, and we had all the demographics being reached. So we'd have soap stars, as I said, we'd had highbrow Ricky Gervais, we'd have reality TV to get to the tabloid generation. So my aim was always to educate on every single level. But it wasn't really enough in terms of putting an end to puppy farming. So we were promoting the best way to get a dog, which is obviously to see puppy with its mum in the place it was born, interacting, or to go to rescue. So we had this, so that spun off what's called a Where's Mum campaign. We used the hashtag Where's Mum to encourage people to ask where mum was, plus the hashtag adopt. And then I realized that we were making a difference, but we weren't changing any laws. And for someone who was a nature nerdy, geeky science boy who really struggled to interact with adults when I was younger, even people of my own age, I was very, very reclusive, very introvert. All of a sudden thinking, right, I've got to do something more. And I remember one of my local MPs said to me, who had actually judged the first ever dog show, helped judge, and she said, come up to London, I want to talk about your campaign, because I just helped her get a rescue dog. I'd advised her family about getting a dog. She got a rescue dog. So I went up to London, and one of the first times I went to London, to Westminster, it was the scene. Remember the scene in Gladiator when they go to Rome for the first time, and they go in the Colosseum, and they're looking up, going, "What is this place?" And that was me in Westminster, because I had never been there. I had no need to go there, no desire to go there. Politics was something that just other people did. So I had a chat with her, and she suggested I do my first e-petition, which was very new at the time. The second time I went, I won't go through all the times, But the second time I was so inexperienced in going to Westminster that I took my mum and my grandma to meet an MP, right? It was like we'd won a competition on a cereal packet or something. So I went from 0 to over 300 visits to Westminster on every day off being a vet from practice in about 6 years. I learned how to campaign, I learned how to lobby, I learned how to meet MPs, I learned how to do e-petitions. One of the dog shows in 2014, I think it was, I noticed this tiny little Cavalier King Charles Spaniel being carried by a girl, and I just, there was something about the double act that was just so beautiful. The dog was terrified. It had only just been rescued from a puppy farm, but the care that was being given to her by her owner was incredible. And that dog was Lucy. So Lucy was a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel rescued from a Welsh licensed puppy farm at 5 years old. She had arthritis, she had epilepsy, dry eye, separation anxiety, but she just loved everybody around her. And I thought, this huge personality around humans, when it's humans that have tortured her effectively. And we kept in touch, and she kept coming to the dog shows, and we'd meet up in various dog shows and events. And Lucy the Rescue Cavalier is actually a Facebook page which still exists. Sadly, she passed away a few years ago. But Lucy's owner Lisa was an amazing example of how to raise awareness about puppy farming with nothing. So she'd go to events and she'd meet celebrities and built up this fantastic Facebook page, which was basically raising awareness about puppy farming and raising awareness about rescue. So I was starting to surround myself with people that had no resources, but were able to raise awareness on a massive scale. Beverly, who we've mentioned, also very helpful. We've got Linda and Sue, who volunteered for an organisation called Cariad in Wales. Julia in Folkestone, Sarah Clover near Birmingham. We had Philippa, who sadly passed away in Sheffield. So there was about 6 of us campaigners, all working for the same thing, which we decided was to ban third-party puppy sellers, puppy and kitten sellers. So for example, pet shops, anywhere that sells without the mum, as a first step in making all breeders accountable. And that was the campaign, and we started in 2013, and we got it over. We faced obstruction after obstruction after obstruction, from the pet industries, from some of the biggest charities, from government, from all sorts of directions.
A big lobbies that go against that. There's just, I mean, it's a multi-million pound industry, definitely. So if not even more, I mean,
it was incredible. And people watching, if you do want to learn more, I did write the whole 10-year campaign up as a book, which came out last year. It's called Lucy's Law. There she is, Lucy. It's the same official rosette that I wore tonight. One of the most incredibly brave, funny, just delightful dogs to be around, considering what she'd been made to do and what she'd been through. And we rebranded the campaign pretty much in the last 18 months to call it Lucy's Law in her honor after she passed away. And eventually became law in 2019. It was law, and then it passed into legislation, and then last spring in April it actually became law, actually in force in 2020. So it was a 10-year campaign. We got it over the line in England. It's now coming in Wales in September, Scotland in September. It's being written in Northern Ireland. It's influencing laws in the States. It's just incredible. And yeah, I mean, Lucy was an amazing dog, and I can't think of a better dog to honor, with the campaign and with the law change, and she'll always be remembered. But it's important to realize it is the first step. There's plenty more work that needs doing. But for us campaigners, us grassroots campaigners, it was all about making breeders accountable, and that is the most important thing. You can build on that. You can build anything more on that. But it was always to make them accountable. And the alternative, which is what some of the other organizations that were blocking us were campaigning for, if you like, was to license pet shops better, to license dealers better. But we know that there's no way of licensing that can ever improve animal welfare to a point where it's appropriate or even acceptable to sell via a third party without mum and without the and away from where the mum was born. So it's a huge breakthrough, and it was a huge team effort from campaigners and celebrities, the public, ethical charities and organisations, so many MPs and ministers, and yeah, we got it over the line. So incredibly proud. And do you know what? You played a part in the whole story as well when you invited me to Estonia, and you saw some of the scrutiny that some of those veterinary organisations, you know, were asking me questions, and it was fine because that's what we'd experienced. But it was, you know, you were part of the solution as well in the campaign.
Well,
so thank you.
Because I think it was a leading example what can be achieved, and that was something really good that came out of the UK, where really the EU, other EU countries should have taken note, and hopefully they will progressively take note. I mean, I'm working now.
Maybe they will.
Also part-time do veterinary telemedicine, and we quite often sort of interview sort of new dog owners, and I would say, I mean, do that in Germany, in Austria, and I would say that probably 30% of the new dogs, the new puppies are coming from abroad, predominantly Eastern Europe. So they are definitely bred for purely commercial reasons. I mean, it's a huge amount of puppies.
The last year has been spent campaigning to ban the import of puppies under 6 months coming in from Eastern Europe and from elsewhere. And next month, there should be some exciting news from Westminster on that one. Lucy's Law Part 2.
Okay, looking forward to that.
And the reason for the 6 months limit. The reason for the 6 months limit, as you know, 6 months is when the puppy's secondary teeth come through. So it's the only thing that you can actually, that you can't falsify. You know, passports, documents, pieces of paper, it's microchips, you know, super glued onto collars. It can all be falsified, but the teeth you can't. And so teeth has to be the only way of getting a successful enforcement, let's say, because it's obviously mandatory visual checks post-Brexit. And also the 6 months gives the an opportunity for the rabies injection to be given twice, so a proper course rather than just one, which has been proven to be ineffective. And it also will take out illegal puppy smuggling, because you can't actually sell a puppy that's under 6 months, because as soon as it goes to the vet goes, it's too young, where'd you get it from, and launch an investigation. So there's a deterrent there.
Yeah, and I mean that sort of divides, and also pretty much sort of the people sort of that really want to have a dog and not just a puppy. A lot of people buy a puppy and are later surprised that a dog that they have a dog. But I mean, if you get a dog with 6 months, if you really want to have a dog from abroad, then you don't mind if the dog is 6 months, providing it was reared sort of in an ethical and in a good environment. But it clearly means sort of you are not sort of confused just by having a cute puppy. You are really interested in the dog if you take it on with 6 months, because then this whole puppy sort of what shall I say, sort of this puppy fantasy is not playing a role. You are interested in a canine friend, in a canine partner, in a canine family member, and that is what we really should push.
Absolutely.
But as I said, I mean, it is.
I was going to say some good stuff's happening.
Yeah.
And
sorry,
it's okay. It's okay. Amongst other things, there's some really good animal welfare stuff coming out of the government next month in what's called the Queen's Speech. That's the official opening of Parliament. So primary legislation bills is the plan of the next year's laws, and there's a lot of animal welfare stuff going in, and there should be some interesting news for all animal lovers, not just dog lovers. So I think May the 11th. Okay. Keep an eye on the BBC News for the Queen's Speech and the debate that follows, and there should be some interesting stuff in there.
You have heard it in the Fikaba Vet Chat first.
Fingers
That's
crossed.
an exclusive.
Or should I say paws
That's
crossed,
great.
because you never
Yeah,
know
yeah,
until
yeah.
it's said, and
Yep.
it will still have some work to go through the Houses of Parliament because it's primary legislation. But from what we're hearing, some really positive things are about to happen in the UK with regard to animal welfare and dogs. Yeah.
But then, I mean, you didn't stop there. I mean, it is sort of we had Lucy's Law. Then, I mean, you got generally very much involved, sort of also in issues with street dogs. Now you have, for example, Stop the Crop, about ear cropping. That's at the moment sort of a very sort of a very big issue, which is in the media. Sort of, it just seems then it goes from one animal welfare issue into
I think
several others.
so. There's two reasons why that's happened. First of all, part of my campaigning in Westminster was to set up the all-party parliamentary group for dog welfare, right, which was set up from scratch, and it was the only way at the time in 2017 of actually holding the big organizations to account that were trying to block us and sabotage us and refuse to support us. And it was the only platform that we could invent that we could call them in to give evidence at my committee, right? I mean, from someone that went from zero knowledge of politics to now be running what's called an all-party parliamentary group is quite something. But what that's progressed to is overseeing other people's campaigns. So I've got obviously the experience of being a successful campaigner in Westminster, and also now the absolute privilege of working with some of the most incredible campaigners that I know. So Jordan Shelley is heading the Flop Not Crop, or Cut the Crop as the BVA renamed it. You've got banning greyhound racing, you've got the pet theft reform, you've got all these spin-offs of campaigns that, you know, we've got the e-petition system in this country, which is incredibly successful for bringing these subject matters to Westminster to be discussed by MPs and ministers.
Just to explain on that one, in the UK, it's so if there's an e-petition and more than, I think, 100,000 people sign the e-petition, then by law, it has to be discussed in Parliament. So they can't ignore it. Sort of, it's then such a big movement. The issue is of such an importance that it needs to be given the necessary time to be discussed in Parliament.
Yeah, and what those discussions bring, you never really get a result as such in terms of we're going to do this because all these people have signed a petition. But what you get is the briefings being sent in by the opposition organisations to the MPs. And that is the gold for an e-petition debate. It's all well and good everyone voting on it and saying yes, yes, yes. And then the government will always say, we'll think about it and come back to you. But it's the briefings from the opposing, whether it's industry or whether it's corporate charity sector, those are the briefings that you need to then dissect and then go back to the MPs and ministers and say, actually, this is all speculation. This is the evidence. So that's what that unravels. And I've learned the hard way because I've done three. I've run three petitions now, all to 100,000. And I am now this sort of it's a blessing and a curse. I'm now like this go-to guy for, can you look at this petition? Can you introduce me to this person? How do we do it? Da, 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 da. Which leads me on to a little bit of breaking news, is that I've just got the green light from my Lucy's Law publishers, and I'm going to write a book which comes out next spring called it's going to be called Be More Mosquito: How to Change the World for Free. And it's based on a Dalai Lama quote, which is, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. So it's called Be More Mosquito: How to Change the World for Free. And every chapter is going to be something that everyone can do, everyone has access to, and it costs nothing to change the world and make it a better place, not just for animal welfare, but across the board. So my vision is to replace this sort of online toxicity and blaming and finger pointing and, oh, it's someone else can sort it out, with actually, we can all do something to improve the situation, whether it's retweeting something sitting on the toilet to leading a full-on campaign to changing the law, public behavior, making a difference. So I'm gonna put down everything I've learnt over the last 10 years on paper, and that will be almost like a handbook for people that are interested in making progress, changing the law, or even just changing public behaviour or raising awareness. So that only got decided a few days ago, so you're the first to hear it.
Okay, another exclusive. There we
There
go.
There you go.
So good.
So yeah, it's an interesting time, and we're making a lot of progress, and also with the app dog, which is what the all-party parliamentary group for dog welfare is called. We have meetings. We've had quite a few meetings over the last lockdown. We bring issues about collaboration and about the import of European rescue dogs. Real issues that are sort of being talked about, and it's my job then to line up and invite the speakers. We've had 500 people on every single Zoom meeting, and we try and make progress, and we try and bring people together to, let's say, virtually swap business cards, and off they go, and make, for me, it's all about collaboration. You don't achieve anything unless you collaborate, you get consensus, and then you can actually go off, and experts can join together and pool their resources, and off they go. But we're past now. We're in an incredibly exciting time with regard to campaigning, because we've all got these resources available to us. So the petitions, meeting MPs, holding rallies, doing events, blah, blah, blah. And we can actually make progress and change laws without any resources whatsoever. So in the olden days, it was the big charities. They had the money, they had the PR departments, they had the ear of the government. But embarrassingly, and this doesn't go for all of them, but what we saw, especially with my campaign, is that they didn't do anything.
Well, or they were possibly actually criticizing you.
Well, and benefiting from the status quo, which is controversial, but if we had another few hours to talk, I could explain it. But basically, it's, for me personally, my experience was the smaller charities, the mid to small size charities, were the ones that supported us and wanted change, and effectively wanted to be out of a job because they didn't want all this overpopulation and too many rescue dogs. And then you had the corporate charity sector that seemed to be quite happy to keep the status quo. But now all the charities and the campaigners and the petitions and all this activity that's going on with minimal resources is actually changing stuff now. And as I say, it's quite an exciting arena to be in. So yeah, watch this space, because there's a lot of things about to change.
Animal welfare is one of the key subjects of interest also for all veterinary professionals or companion animal veterinary professionals in Europe. And that is what FECAVA is promoting. And we have several campaigns, for example, dealing with street dogs, or, for example, with responsible breeding, especially with the BOAS problem, for example. So we have worked very, very hard for pretty much since the existence of our organizations on that one. So I can only say, sort of, if you have any information to share, please do so, also because, I mean, you are an inspiration not only in the UK, I mean, also for a lot of other European veterinary professionals, how to do these things. And I mean, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you in Tallinn, because, I mean, you can show other colleagues who would like to do something like that how to do it, and things that work in the UK very well will work in the same way, or might work in the same way also in other European countries. And only if we learn from each other and look over a little bit over each other's shoulder, in the same way as you look over the shoulder of a colleague when you are doing clinical practice.
Absolutely right.
It's an ongoing learning process, and it's sometimes sort of little tricks that makes the difference, especially when it comes to PR, when you want to promote the thing. I find it very frustrating. I mean, there is scientific paper after paper after paper, sort of, that is highlighting the problem, and that is trying to produce evidence-based proof that certain dog breeds have severe difficulties because of the conformance of the conformation of the body, and yet sort of it will not touch the general public. But then you have one A-lister who stands up and says, actually, sorry, I don't want to be photographed with a dog this with this disability. It might look cute, but just listen to this dog. If one A-lister sort of just makes a comment like that, it has a much bigger impact on the whole on the whole idea, or on the whole subject. And I mean, that's as somebody who is sort of, well, a child of the Enlightenment, somebody who had a sort of a scientific sort of upbringing, university study, it is sometimes frustrating because, well, you try to stick just to the evidence and to the raw data, but you realize the raw data will not do it. You need people who can change opinions, and it's sometimes just one or two people, but if these are people, well, which are sort of who are responsible for the opinion of a certain group of the generation, they can make that with few comments or just a clear statement, and they will achieve much more.
Okay, so what you're saying is absolutely spot on. It couldn't be more right. But it is, I have to stress, it's all part of the bigger picture when you have a campaign, because you can have celebrities and A-listers and influencers saying whatever you like, but when it comes to policy making, it has to be the evidence.
Absolutely.
And my job, I guess, I haven't got paid for campaigning, but my job, or some of the leaders of the other campaigns, you've got Jordan Shelley and the Flop Not Crop, you've got Dr. Dan Allen with Pet Theft Reform, is to be the glue and to almost, I use the word ambush because I think it's really descriptive of what you do. You basically set up the celebrities, you've got the evidence, you've got organizations behind you, you've got cross-party support, and you set up an ambush so that the decision maker at the end of the day has nowhere to go. And so the evidence is essential. It's essential for campaigners like myself, because when I fronted the Lucy's Law campaign, I was the one going into Westminster. I was the one meeting the MPs. In the end, we were going into number 10, and we were presenting evidence. And some of the big organizations that were blocking us were presenting speculation. And evidence will always beat speculation, especially. And this is why, when I say about the opposition sending the briefings to MPs in the debates, that's usually speculation, and the evidence always beats it. So it's always good to know what the speculation is that they're trying to convince other people to think otherwise. So yes, the celebrities and the influencers make a massive difference. Ricky Gervais, incredibly powerful in terms of social media, what he says, how he behaves, become a very good friend of mine. Just to keep pinching myself because, you know, he's always been a hero. But these people also love animals, and they want to do what they can, and they may retweet something, or they may tweet something, or they may turn up at my dog show, and it's massive, and they always play it down. But it's incredible. People like Peter Egan and people like Brian May and other celebrities and influencers in the UK, everyone plays a part. Even someone in the middle of nowhere who signs and shares that petition plays a part in change. And interestingly, another thing that I've noticed over the years is when people haven't got the money that they maybe had in the past to donate to charities, a way of giving is to share something, is to sign something, is to comment on something. And that sometimes I think makes more influence in terms of changing and improving animal welfare than actually just donating to a charity. So that whole side of things has changed as well. People are more likely to sign and share. The culture of signing and sharing is just growing and growing. People love to feel like they're doing something. They love to feel empowered that they're part of the solution. And that's another thing that our job is as campaigners, is empowering people, thanking people, relationship building, making them feel and they're part of the solution, and you're taking them on the journey with them, to the extent where I ended up sourcing the rescue dog for the Prime Minister. You know, there was a rumor going around Downing Street that they were thinking about getting a dog. So Boris and his fiance Carrie, I contacted Carrie because I knew her from campaigning, and I said, I know you're thinking about getting a rescue dog, but I need to tell you a few things first to help you make that decision. So I met with Carrie. She said, come to number 10. And she said, come to number 10 tomorrow. I'll pick you up at 4 o'clock. You can come up to the flat. The flat being a huge 3-story mansion inside number 11.
Yes, we all heard about it, especially in the last few days.
Yes, yeah, that's the flat. It's massive. It's absolutely massive.
Was it
anyway,
before or after it was renovated?
Before, because I remember going there and they'd only just moved in because he'd only just become prime minister, and there were still boxes of stuff, and they hadn't chosen the art yet from the government art collection. Anyway, and it was so new to Carrie. In fact, they said, "Do you want a guided tour?" So we were running around the flat and saw the bedroom and the bathroom, and it was so funny. Anyway, chat. I explained about the campaign. I explained that really the rescue dog they should be getting, which was from a volunteer-run charity called Friends of Animals Wales, who only deal in discarded breeding dogs or puppies that are going to be drowned because they've got problems. So chat, and Carrie was like, amazing, that's the charity I want to get the dog from. So I did an email intro to the woman who runs the charity, the most amazing woman called Eileen Jones, and that was it. And then 10 days later, I was in Spain on the beach getting drunk with my friends on holiday. I'd just arrived, and my phone rang, and it was an English mobile number that I didn't recognize, and normally I just ignore, but I was quite drunk, and I thought, oh, what the hell, let me just pick it up. And this voice went, hello. And I said, hello.
Hello.
And he went, is that Marc?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. I said, is that Marc? I said, yeah. He goes, it's Boris here. I'm with Carrie, and we've decided on Dylan. Now, how can we make this happen? Now, I'm sitting with my mates drunk in Spain at a beach bar, so obviously I have to put him on loudspeaker.
I have the British Prime Minister on the phone.
So he's on loudspeaker. And he said, are you abroad? And I was like, yeah, I'm in Spain. He goes, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt your holiday. I said, Prime Minister, you can call me whenever you like. So my point with this is, and obviously Dylan has been a huge success. He had an undershot jaw. He was going to be drowned. He's very famous dog now. But my point with this is, and there is a point, to go from not knowing anything about politics to then sourcing a rescue dog for the Prime Minister. Also, when Lucy's Law was passed, they gave me and my campaigning team a garden party in number 10. And we had celebrities and campaigners, blah, 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 and friends and family. But we also had ex-rescue breeding dogs from Wales running around the garden, and Downing Street Kitchen baked them bone-shaped treats. So these dogs have come from hell, and now they're running around one of the most prestigious addresses in the world. And also, when we left the garden party, I gave an impromptu speech from the steps of number 10, which only Prime Minister is allowed to do. But apparently the security looked over and went, "I'll just let him get on with it." I was holding a dog, and it just my point is, it just shows what you can do with no resources, but just to be obsessed to the point of making these changes because it's the right thing to do. And I'm very privileged to have been influenced by my dad, who is no longer with us, but he was in advertising, creative. So I always grew up around campaigning in terms of advertising campaigning, fonts, logos, branding, especially branding. He was a brand genius. And as you know, my grandma, who passed away a few weeks ago, who was who escaped from the Holocaust and taught me that anything is possible.
I should have interviewed her as well. I mean,
you could have done it in German.
So, yeah, maybe yes, as well.
But she taught me that anything's possible and to never give up. So I have a very unique background in sort of the creative, the survival, and the never giving up. My mum still with us, massive animal lover. So that's kind of the third piece of the pie. So I do appreciate that I'm not like the other boys in terms of my background, but I want to use what I've learned. As I say, I'm going to write a book about it, and I'm happy to share, as you know, like we did in Estonia. I'm happy to share with anyone that's interested what I've done and how they can do it too. And that's my passion, is to educate on every level.
So the best might be, I think you have don't you, your Facebook page is Marc the Vet.
Marc the Vet, Facebook page, Twitter's both Marc the Vet, Marc with a C, named after the French painter Marc
Because
Chagall.
I'm pretty sure that some of our viewers or listeners might like to look up and might like to learn more about you.
Yeah, and if they want to message me and ask me questions, they can too. Without, I'm happy to do that. And I'm all about sharing, as hopefully that's become obvious. Sharing what I've learned, sharing my experiences, sharing how to make change with the minimal resources. And at the end of this year, touch wood, fingers crossed, we would have changed 5 laws. And that's coming from someone who had no idea about law, politics, or history 8 years ago. It's crazy, right?
Marc, you are an inspiration to us all. It was absolutely great fun talking to you. And I mean, we could go on for another 2 hours. Just maybe we have a second one at a later point.
In a few months' time we can
have a look how things sort of panned out. It's just so interesting. So I hope that everybody enjoyed this episode of Recover Vet Chat. If you would like to contact us, please do so. Our email address is vetchat@recover.org, or please use the Recover social media sites. Again, Marc, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope
Bitte schön.
Danke. And I hope I see you again, everybody, next week for another episode of Recover Vet Chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Wolfgang. Appreciate it.